Hello.
Hey Jesse, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again.
Yep. Likewise.
Yes. How's everything been?
Good. Just trying to adjust to the weather. So
Oh yeah, for sure, right? It's always a big adjustment.
yeah, just trying to because this is where people start to get sick and all that stuff. So
Which is why I'm sure that it's helpful for you to have Zoom calls, right? You can be a little more cautious.
yeah, I mean even now we don't really touch the dogs, and then
Mm,
so that helps too. But
right.
just in general we're on limited staff, so if somebody gets
Yeah.
sick, it's like who's going to take the dogs home from daycare because some of them we transport.
Okay.
So, but it
Okay.
hasn't happened yet, so I'll worry about that later.
Well, I hope it doesn't happen at least for a while for you.
Thank you. How how are things going with the pups?
It's been good. Bessie has been well, I feel like we've been seeing a lot of improvement.
Okay.
She's been doing, I think I don't know if it's necessarily her so much as Will and me and how we handle the situations. I
Okay.
feel like we're a little bit better prepared
Okay.
for when we know something's going to stress her out.
Okay. What
Mm-hmm.
does that look like?
One of the big instances for us is when we do a lot of takeout.
Oh,
We're
sure.
Yeah. So, or a lot of delivery from Uber Eats. So, whenever we know the food is going to be delivered, we can prepare to, get bone time ready for the dogs at dinner. They always get like a bully stick when we have our dinner so that they have something to do and we can concentrate on our food.
Okay.
And so I know when the food's going to get here, I'll get this bully stick. Or if we don't know how to handle it, I know how to get Bessie away from the situation. We don't always have the e-collar on her in those
Okay.
moments, but the bonkers have been really helpful.
Okay.
So that's been great. And we just have been trying to figure out how to dissipate some of that anxiety in those moments.
Okay. So the front door essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, I'm making a note here. So I'm
Yes.
gonna send you some videos. I'll go over it with you, but it's these videos will help kind of picture what we're trying to achieve here.
Okay.
And there's two videos in particular. One was pre-COVID, where I'm actually within the home, and the other is post-COVID, so it's via a Zoom call. So excuse the
Okay.
camera work, but essentially, when it comes to the front door, um, let's say you order food. The great thing about ordering food is that you can foresee or food's going to be here in 45 minutes. Okay,
Right.
is we have uh, what I call prevention and intervention. Okay. Prevention is like, let's say, I can tell Bessie to lay down on her bed, and if she really respects the command, she's not going to move from the bed. So that prevents the
Yes.
charging at the door. Okay.
Yes.
It's a preventative measure. Intervention would be, we're caught off guard, there's somebody at the door, and I need to de escalate the dogs and intervene in the situation. Okay.
Yes.
And there's no real right or wrong. Um, the only thing I would think about with Bessie, if you try to use a stationary command, is because I know she gets really pent up and possibly redirect if a dog or gets is in her personal space. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that
Mm-hmm.
would be my only concern with that approach. With the other approach, my concern would be, if she's in the midst, like if someone comes to the door, right? Do all the dogs come charging, or how does that look?
They all come charging,
Okay.
and they all are bark. Well, okay. The three really little dogs, the one back there,
Yep.
who I need to go bonk. And then our two others, our dachshund is a huge proponent of this because she just barks whenever she feels like it because she's a dachshund. So that has a lot to do with it. They just get all riled up and they bark and they go ballistic. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about today was the dachshund because she will, I swear, she just looks at me like, I dare you to bonk me, lady. I dare you. And she'll just keep going. So she will stop, but it takes, Will is definitely better at bonking harder than I am.
Mm-hmm.
he'll reprimand me and like, okay, you got to bark a little bit more, right?
Yep.
So, but that is for the front door, especially whenever someone knocks on the door, they all go charging, and our instinct is to get the big dogs away from the little dogs, right? So we probably, I think, would need more intervention work there in that instance.
When the front door happens, who's the biggest energy?
The dachshund.
Okay, so actually that's the one you'd want to address.
Okay.
Because that's the energy that's leading the situation, right? And then I guess to clarify, in that situation, who do you feel like is leading it?
I would say the dachshund, and then our oldest dog, Evie, who is a Chihuahua Rat Terrier mix.
Okay.
Because they're the ones, yeah.
Okay. So typically the loudest energy is the leading energy. So the dachshund, right? In both these questions, is when you address the leader, just like in the human world, right? When you address the leader of a group, essentially the group falls apart, and they might have like a backup or whatever. But once you wipe out like the top people, the group falls apart. Now they might regroup, but that's human stuff, right? Dogs don't really regroup. Okay. Once you address the leading energy, you should notice the energy calms down more, and you might even see what looks like, what do we do here?
Yeah.
Okay, like because I've done it where I've had homes where there's multiple dogs, and I would correct the loudest or the dog that I felt was leading the situation, and all of a sudden things quieted down so much.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other dogs were like looking at each other like, okay, now what do we do? And then I addressed the other dogs. Okay, because if you try to address the bigger dogs, which I mean that is not to say is incorrect, okay, but if it really is the dachshund leading the situation, you'll address the bigger dogs, but all the other dogs will still be intense. That even the big dogs may come back and re-engage. Okay, so when you address the leading energy, things should quiet down quite a bit, and then I would address like whoever seems to be the next loudest. Okay, so like, let's say you stop the dachshund, and she correct?
Yeah.
She backs away, and then maybe it's like Benny who's barking the loudest. Then I address him, right?
Okay.
As an example, and then you might find that after that, it just yeah. What's he do now? We got to see what he does next.
He walked away. Now he's coming back.
Okay.
And he's looking at me shaking, like.
Go ahead and correct him again.
Okay.
Even if he's walking away, correct him again. Okay. And now let me see him, and then walk away. But let me keep it so I can see him. We're going to hold right there. Wait a moment. That should be fine. So then you would go to the next one. And like, let's say as you go to approach the second dog, the dachshund triggers again. You would address the dachshund again. Okay? So what I suggest doing is, instead of waiting to do this when you have delivery coming over or something like that, is because now you're pressed for time and you're going to rush. And if you're rushing, you're not going to do it correctly, is that you do it when like Will's going to come home, and instead of just walking in, he rings the bell. Okay? Now, you're going to get similar reaction, but a different route, right? Because when the delivery guy comes over or whatever, Amazon, it's usually territorial behavior.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
When Will comes over, it's going to be excitement.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter what the root cause of it is, because they're going to look the same. They're going to be barking, except one is they're barking because they're territorial, and the other sense they're barking because they're excited. Okay? And you may find that it will be more difficult to actually address this with Will, because it's excitement. They're happy to see him. So if you can get this to happen with him, then technically addressing like, the Amazon guy or food delivery guy should be easier. Okay, because they're not going to enter the home, right? Like it's going to be handled outside, so that's easier. whereas Will would actually end up coming in at some point. Okay,
Mhm.
so I always tell everybody, don't wait to practice this when you need to. You can fake situations like that and use
Okay.
that to your advantage so that when it comes to a situation like the delivery guy, you've already got a foundation down and you're not worried about keeping them waiting for like 5 minutes or something.
Okay.
Okay? Because the first time you try to do this is probably going to take it's like the longest because you have so
Okay.
many dogs.
Yeah.
Okay? And I've had even like homes with one dog take upwards of 15 minutes.
Okay.
Because a dog's so intense. But
Right.
they do the exercise completely, and then the next time they try to do it, it only takes 5 minutes, and then the next time it's only a minute, and then it's only
Mhm.
30 seconds. It just progressively gets less and less time
Okay.
consuming.
Yeah.
So um, when you do the bonker, because like you said, Will would mention you need to go firmer, right? Is you're making more work for yourself
Mhm.
because the dachshund knows like, oh, when mom corrects me, like she's soft,
Yeah.
right? And then it really negates what you're trying to do
Right.
because you're not willing to go to the extent needed. As opposed to if I just came in and she's like a very like you saw, I sent you the videos, correct?
Yeah.
And you saw how firm he corrected that puppy. It was
Yeah.
firm,
Yeah.
right? Because he knows he's like
Yeah.
one dogs bite each other.
Right.
Like
Right.
what I do with this towel will never like ever create the damage or discomfort that a bite could,
Oh yeah, for
right?
sure.
And even for
Mhm.
small dogs, like um, I just had a client tell me it was over food that her dog went after her mom's dog, and her
Okay.
dog is approximately 40 to 55 pounds, and her mom's dog is a small 10 to 15 pound Maltese, and
Mhm.
she bit her good.
Mhm.
Okay, punctures and everything. Okay,
Yep. We've had
so
those.
yeah, size doesn't matter there. Like she went in and said, "Gonna do it like this." Okay,
Mhm.
so you have to kind of think the same way, but the intention is different.
Right.
Which everybody struggles with, especially when it comes to these physical corrections, because the way it looks, the way they perceive it, the way they interpret it
Right.
in their own head, it's
Right.
always a hesitation for people. Okay,
Mhm.
which is funny because I actually don't like the bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it because of the same thing, but I do the Caesar Milan approach, which is with his hand. You
You
know,
said the bite. I remember you telling me that last time.
yeah, and I have no problem with that. But
Mhm.
me myself, I know I have that, but I don't need the bonker because I'm so good at using the Caesar Milan
Mhm.
approach.
Mhm.
Um, but and I'm aware of that. But if needed, if I have to bonk a dog, like I will. You
Right.
know, so just for your FYI, as best you can, right off the bat, just stop it, okay?
Right.
Because it's going to make that whole door exercise so much longer than it needs to be,
Mhm.
okay? Because you have to multiply that times 7, right?
Yeah.
So ideally, when you address the biggest energy,
Okay.
you shouldn't have to address all the dogs, okay?
Okay.
Technically,
Right.
but don't be surprised if you do,
Mhm.
okay? So you would go from the loudest energy to the next loudest energy to the next one, and you're making them
Okay.
all leave the situation of the door,
Okay.
okay? Now, in the video that I'm going to send you, they're doing e-collar, okay?
Oh. Okay. Mhm.
Um, and then so I don't have one with a bonker because most people it's just a single one or two dogs.
Mhm.
But essentially, what we're doing is we're using body language to back the dogs away from the front door to claim
Mhm.
space. So what your dogs are doing is, they're rushing to the door, and if you open, they would charge whoever's out there and bark at them or whatever and say like, this is our home,
Right.
blah 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 blah.
Right.
And they're being territorial. They're confronting or moving towards the
The
unknown
threat.
person, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the threat. So what we do is actually we use that same psychology against the dogs, except you're doing it before you open the door. Okay, most people when they go to open the door, they try to rush through everything. Like if they have one dog, they'll hold the dog back. They'll open the
Right.
door. They'll sign the receipt. They'll let
Mhm.
the take the food or whatever, close it, and then they'll let the dog go. But then the
And
dog's
it's still
going nuts,
stressful.
the entire time.
Yeah.
Or they'll like put their dog in another room, and the dog's tearing up the door because in the dog's brain, they're going, there's a threat here.
Yeah.
And since they're behind the door, their stress levels go up because they can't
Right.
see. So then they want to get to whatever's out there. So then they
Right.
tear up stuff.
Right.
Or, the dogs will run out because they're so stimulated. They'll run out, and then they're in the territorial mode that they'll go to the next thing that they see.
Right.
So we want to make sure we address all the dogs prior to opening the front door.
Okay.
Okay. So in the video, I like to use visuals, and I would most likely do. You'd have to probably do this in either like one dog at a time, or you can do smaller groups of dogs. And the one it would be just Bessie is we would be concerned about the redirect. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we would isolate Bessie. Okay. Work with her by herself first, and I'm going to explain the process because if there's too much stimulation and you're trying to confront her, and we know she's capable of redirecting, like you're putting yourself in a situation where you may see that. Okay.
Right.
Now, have you ever seen that happen with the front door?
No, it's never been with the front door. Mm-mm.
When was it with the kennel?
There was one time where she wanted a treat. There was one when they were playing, and it somehow she just like escalated and got really upset from the playing, but there wasn't a toy or anything involved. Then one of the worst times was when I had come home with Bessie from somewhere, and the dachshund came over to get attention from me, and she didn't want her to get attention. So it's been those kind of situations. There was another time when we were having something delivered and put into the garage, and Will let Abby come into the room, and that made her redirect to Abby and bit her dead.
So she was heightened that somebody was in the garage.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I would do is keep her kenneled and then separate the dogs. Okay. So we have, because there's Benny, Bessie, and then we have the Chihuahua, and then we have Ren and Stimpy, right?
Yep.
So the other dogs are smaller dogs, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
5 or 20 pounds and under.
Okay.
But Ren and Stimpy, they don't bark. They'll go over and like hang out with the other dogs, but they don't bark. They just stand there. They're very calm, very chill about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the other 5.
Okay. So I would do Bessie and Benny separately.
Okay.
And then do all the little dogs together.
Okay.
Okay. And I would do the little dogs first because it sounds like they're the leaders. Okay. Yeah, I know. Size doesn't matter, in the dog world. No. So,
yeah.
So in the video, I know in the video I'm doing it with remote collar. You would simply adapt that to the bonker. Okay. So the way this is going to look is when I would suggest you do this when Will's coming home from like an errand or something,
Sure.
And he's going to stay out there. So just let him know this is going to take a few minutes, but he doesn't want to keep ringing the doorbell. Just ring the doorbell, knock, and then from at that point, he's done, and then you have to do your job with the dogs.
Gotcha.
Okay? Is have your bonkers ready and immediately available. The dogs go running towards the door. You're not going to say anything.
Right.
You're going to go to the door, and once you get to the door, take a bonker and address the loudest energy. Okay? Just go and correct. Okay? And see what happens. If you get like a pop, okay, good, because that means you cut through the stimulation, and then you're going to start to move. You're going to then place yourself between the dogs and the door. Okay. So in the beginning, you'll kind of approach from behind, address the dog that you need to. They back away to some degree. You're going to then put yourself in the middle of that particular dog. What's your dog's name? Abby, that's what I thought. You're going to confront Abby, and you're going to start to move into her. Okay, so you're going to walk towards her. So the door is behind you, Abby's in front of you, and when you enter your home, Does it open into the living room? What does it open to?
Into a foyer.
Into a foyer. Okay. Is it
Yeah.
like a little hallway?
Yeah, it's a little hallway.
And then what does that open into?
Well, it's like an L, so it goes one way, and I guess a V, and then it comes this way, so it's a hall, and it goes to the living room and then into the dining room.
Gotcha.
And they are all usually into this space. See, I have a gate right there, so that's the foyer.
Gotcha.
They hang out in here.
So where
We
do
don't
they
give them free reign.
where do they charge? How far can they only get up to that gate?
Yeah, they go to the gate.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So that makes things a little bit easier. It also might make things a little bit harder. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to the gate, but separation, even though there's visual, can tend to create more agitation.
Yes.
Okay. This is why, like, when dogs fight behind fences, and then they'll be best friends outside. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what you would do is you would then treat that gate like your front door. Okay?
Yes.
So then you'd be backing them away from the gate, not the door itself.
Okay.
Okay? So it opens into this area, and then I see like what looks like, is there two rooms? There's like what looks like a living room, and then I saw it looks like another couch behind you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is our sunroom.
Gotcha.
That's the sunroom.
Yep.
The dachshund is up there on the back. This is the family room. Over here is the kitchen and
Okay.
there-ish. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So what I would do is I would probably group them, because dogs are all about habit. Okay, so and this is going to be a bit more work, but you have a nice little setup where you can separate the dogs and not have to worry about Bessie in a redirect.
Okay.
So I would back like all the small dogs, like for example, like in the sunroom.
Okay.
Okay, so they're barking at, and this is the practice where you're working with only the 5 small dogs.
Okay.
There's the trigger. You're gonna address Abby or whoever, and in the moment, maybe you're like, oh wait, no, it's not Abby. It's it's this other dog. Address the loudest energy. Okay.
Okay.
As you're approaching, correct, firm. You should see some kind of considerable response, like a movement away, or like what was that? Okay.
Right.
When you see that, no sound, you're going to place yourself between the gate and the dogs in front of you. Okay? And you're going to move into the particular dog that you just corrected. Okay? And you want to think that where your body is pointing is where you're directing the dog. Okay?
Okay.
So it looks like that gate is kind of right across from the sunroom.
I'm at the table, like the dining room table.
Yeah,
the
but
gate
that's
on
essentially
yeah,
kind of
yes.
a, yeah. So then
Yes.
you would use your body as you move into them to back them into that room.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
There is no stay, there is no sit, there is no down, there is no obedience here. Okay?
Right.
So
Right.
think of this as like kind of like sending them to their room. Okay?
I can do that.
So you start with the loudest energy,
Okay.
and then you're gonna have to corral the others same way. But I would do, if you can get more than one at a time, great. Otherwise, you're gonna probably have to do one at a time. Okay?
Okay.
And then if they try to cross to the threshold to sneak back out into the area that you're in, correct. Okay. The moment you see them trying to go back into the room, you would correct. Okay. Don't allow them to get over the threshold, because then it's going to be more work for you.
Gotcha.
This is going to probably be the hardest part of everything, because you have so many little ones, right?
Yeah.
Corral them, and I know like 2 of them are fine, but trust me, just corral them all into the room to make it, how do you say, kind of unison amongst all of them. As you do this so many times, you'll see that they'll start to just corral into the room themselves, and it's not going to be tedious. Okay.
Right.
But the first, like, as you practice in the beginning, it's going to be work and repetition.
Right.
But once they get it, they're like, oh, okay, when mom does this, our job is to go here.
Yes.
Okay. Now the reason why, because even though you have that gate, the reason why we want that room, that threshold, is it makes it easier for you to recognize if they're doing what you want them to.
Okay.
Okay. It's just like an added step, so it's very clear to you that you've done your job. Okay.
Mhm.
So once you've backed them into the sunroom,
Yeah.
when you're doing this, you're actually calming them down.
Oh, okay.
Because you're
Oh, that's a
claiming
good way to think about it.
you're claiming the door. You're because
Okay.
they're saying bark bark bark. Who's here? This is our house.
Yes.
And what you're doing is you're saying thanks for letting me know, but you
Right.
need to calm down. Go over here.
Okay. That's a really good way to explain it. That helps me understand.
That's the underlying conversation. Okay.
Right.
That's why there's no words. That's why there's no obedience here.
Okay.
Because if you say stay or anything like that, you're going to kill the concept. Okay.
Okay.
Because obedience is physical control, and we're doing mental control.
Right.
Okay. Because other
Yes.
trainers, because like I said earlier, you could technically say like go to your bed.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with go to your bed is if they're still really excited about the door, as soon as you open the door, they're going to start barking again.
Right.
Okay, because nobody calmed them down. You simply said, go here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have any way to connect why you're telling them to the thing that's upsetting them.
Correct. Whereas when you back them away, you're using their psychology. You're doing the exact same thing they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing stay out of our home. And you're doing, hey, thanks for letting me know. Get out of this area.
Yeah.
Okay? So when you send them to the room, I don't care what they do. I just care that they calm down.
Right.
Okay?
There you go. Hang on. Someone just knocked at the door. Oh, it's delivery. Oh, apparently they don't care this time.
Huh.
I don't know. They're all just kind of hanging out. Like, what's she going to do about this? Hey, Will, can you get the food? Because I'm with Jesse and we're using this as a training opportunity.
Is there anybody there? Or any dogs there?
Yeah, I've got 4 of them. I got the 2 big red and... Oh, here you go.
Right,
There's
because you
the
opened the
dachshund.
door. Right.
Where is she?
So go ahead and correct the dachshund here.
Ready? Nope. She
No.
went under the table.
Okay. Is she hiding underneath there?
Yeah. She's blending. The sun went away, so now you can't see her.
Oh, I see her a little bit. Yeah. So now I was just thinking that too when you said that it's kind of that's sort of like your dining area, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that might be an issue with the small dogs? Is they'll go hiding underneath the table?
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then what you could do is when you set it up to be a looks like you're just swatting at flies.
My shake. I have my protein shake, and he's like, "Ooh, what's in there?"
Gotcha. Is if they hide underneath the table,
Yeah.
you're not going to get them out.
Oh, I know.
So what I would do is leash them up if possible.
Okay.
Might be a little bit of a mess, but then focus on the one at a time.
Yeah.
Once they understand that running away, going under the table is not an option,
Yes.
it's not going to be an issue anymore. But it's going to be a bit of work and repetition
Right.
in your particular case.
Right.
Okay? Because most people, within the week, they'll get it done because it's just one dog.
I know.
But you have, you have a few, and then you have that scenario with the table.
Yeah.
So once you get the little guys to understand the concept of don't run under the table, don't go into the living room, and don't go into the kitchen, to go into the sunroom, you'll start to see them corral into the sunroom. Okay?
She's...
That was funny. Is that Abby?
The dachshund, yeah, because she wanted me to give her attention, so she had jumped up at the chair and she started to do a little high-pitched noise because she's like, "Hey, look at me."
Sure.
So I just bumped her. She ran away.
No, that's correct. Yeah. So once you get the small pups down, let's say they're behind the threshold and they're still barking, because they'll learn if we just go behind, if we go in the sunroom,
that's what they'll do.
right? Is you can still correct. Okay? Because even though they've gone behind the threshold, if they're still barking, that means they're still escalated. So when you go to open the door, they're going to charge the gate again.
Okay.
Okay? So very important that you de-escalate them completely.
Okay.
So at this when you open the door, we don't get because like so when the knock happened and you said, oh, apparently they don't care about it today because it was just a quick bark, right? But as soon as Will opened the front door, they
Yes.
triggered, right? So they went to the next step. So same thing if you leave them in the sunroom and they've not been completely addressed, they're gonna trigger and charge the door again or the gate. Okay. So yeah, this exercise has typically 5 triggers. There's the doorbell, door knock. There's cracking the door open. There's seeing the guest. There's hearing the guest, and then there's the guest coming in. Okay. Some dogs will trigger at each one of those things. So like, let's say, you're working with the little pups. You calm them down for the door knock. Then you go to open the door, and you might see them trigger again. You'd want to close the door, go back, address them, back them up if needed, go back to the front door. So it's a bit of a process.
Yeah.
So
but if you're doing this with just Will, then it's not he knows that's what you should
Right.
So
and if you want to make this even easier, like you can do one dog at a time.
Right.
It's just going to take you longer. But if you feel like with the smaller dogs that you can group them together, just work with them all at once, that's fine as well. It just depends on how they respond.
Okay.
So let's say you go back to the door. You look at the dogs, they're quiet. You go to open it, they're still quiet. And then Will steps in. Then they start to like rush the door again. You push Will out, you close the door.
Okay?
Because if he enters and they rush, and I know it's Will, right? It doesn't matter. Because you said, go in this room and don't come out. Okay. So if they're in their heads like, man, it doesn't matter who's at the door, even Dad, even with Dad, we can't rush the door. That means there's no exceptions, right? That it makes everything else much easier. Okay. So then the reason why we'd have to close him out is because if he comes in and they rush out, they got what they wanted. Which was we want to either say hi to Dad or we want to investigate who's here.
Yes.
And it's they would greet that guest, whether it be Will or an actual guest, when you've given the permission or once certain things have been met. Okay, like certain like prerequisites.
Right.
Okay, so Will comes in. They're in the back room. It's okay if they're excited. They'll be wagging their tail. It's okay. But I don't want any vocalizing, and I don't want them thinking they can cross the threshold. Okay, so like I liken this to like growing up. When my mom would have her friends over, she'd tell me, Jesse, go to your room and you can't come out till like everybody's gone, right? Because I was a kid and I was loud or whatever. So I'm like, all right. So it was an unspoken rule of once I'm in my room, I just got to stay in here.
Okay.
Right. So it's the same kind of concept. You're like sending them to their room, and it's like I don't care what you do.
Right.
Just don't be barking.
Right.
Over there. Right. So it's kind of like with me. She's like, go to your room. She's like, you can play video games, you can read a book, you can do your homework, you can color, you can play with your toys. Just don't be loud. Right. So same thing for the dogs.
Yes.
So we're just treating them like 3 to 4-year-old kids because mentally that's what they're at.
Yes.
Okay. So you get that down, and then. Once you feel like you've got a good handle on the small guys, then I would work on Benny. And you could push Benny either into the kitchen area or into the living room area. So he's going into his own space.
He has a pen. He goes into his pen.
Okay, yeah, that works too.
And he's really good about that. I can tell him, Ben, go to your pen, and he will walk in there for me.
Okay.
So.
Is he a barker?
He will bark. Yes, he will bark. We each say he aroos because that's the sound he makes. But yes.
So what we can do is we can keep the pen because it's familiar. It'll make it easy.
He heard me say his name.
But we'll switch the approach.
Okay.
You would instead bonk him and use your body language to push him into the pen.
Okay.
Now he's more than likely going to default to running to the pen anyways because it's something you've already conditioned.
Yes.
But the difference here is if you say, Ben, go to your pen, and he goes, he's probably still barking or ruing from the pen.
Yes.
Right? Because again, physically, you've said, do this. So physically, he's done that. But mentally, he's still stuck on what's going on at the door.
Right.
Okay? So I would remove go to your pen and
Okay.
instead bonk the moment he's got interest, get that reaction, and use your body language to push him towards the pen.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, you can also use the e-collar.
Right.
And in the video, I demonstrated using e-collar.
Okay. So I could do that with him and Bessie.
Correct.
Yes.
But like if he's easy to work with, you can also use the bonker because it's just another thing you can not have to become completely reliant on the e-collar. In some cases, it is what it is, and that's what's best for the owner. Was that Bessie?
Bessie likes to piss off Oliver. So Oliver's now afraid for his life. Bessie's all over.
So who needs to be
sit
corrected?
Back down, see what she does. It's one of Bessie's favorite games, to go pounce on Oliver, and then he makes horrible noises.
Yeah. Do you ever correct that?
I do. I have it. I bonk her when she goes over and does that. I don't know if I'm just not firm enough, but it's not one of those where it causes her. She goes back later, and we return to it day after day.
So you want to, but she's doing the action, then you're correcting, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell when she's thinking about doing it?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I can kind of. It depends on what I'm doing, but more times than not, it's because I'm not paying attention. I feel like.
If you can catch it, so the reason why she keeps going back to it,
yes,
is the bonker is potentially enough to stop it within the moment,
right?
But not enough for her to retain it, or she's going, oh sure, bonk with the towel, it's worth it.
No big deal. Yeah, that's true.
So then you want to go prior, right? So like I would correct her even for looking at Oliver.
Oh, okay. I see.
Like if it's if you notice her doing something there, because then she's like, I can't even think about pouncing on him, or a correction happens.
Okay.
You see that? So
that's helpful.
Yeah. When it comes to behavior,
yeah.
For dogs, it's best if you can address it prior. Okay. Now with the front door, that's an exception.
Yes.
Because it's happening.
Yes.
Amazon, UPS, right? Delivery, like you don't know when it's going to happen.
Right.
Whereas when they're just coexisting and she's like, I want to pounce on Oliver, like it's going to happen.
Yes.
Okay. So anything that you notice, like let's say for like the little one when he was sitting on the edge of the couch, like doing his sounds. Let's say every time he goes to the edge of the couch, he's going to do his sounds. Then the moment you see him moving to the couch, the end of the couch, I correct right there.
Okay.
So I don't even let him get to that point.
Okay.
Okay, so you're getting the dog pre the behavior.
Okay.
And that's the most effective way of going about it.
That's really cool, and I'm gonna take advantage of.
Yeah. No, that most people do the, especially with my reactivity or my reactive dogs.
Yeah.
The owners a lot of the time will wait for the dog to already be reactive before they start remoting.
Yeah. See, that was I think kind of a question that I wasn't sure I had, but I'm glad you say. Because I always am kind of like waiting for when they do the thing I don't want them to do. So I like knowing that when I go, oh, she's going to pounce on Oliver, I can just grab her.
And what you want to do is catch those little moments and go firmer.
Okay.
Right? So you're it's kind of disproportionate because you want her to not just stop the thought process, but not even think about repeating it. But if she's actively doing it, and getting away, even if you correct her firm, she's like, "It's cool. Like, I got to do what I wanted."
Yeah, right. She's like, "I still made Oliver scream."
Yeah, and I started telling people now, dog logic and human logic are not the same.
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
So I had a client whose dog would dig in the garbage, and they would blast him
What?
on 127 continuous. Okay, and he kept going back to the garbage. And they're like, Jesse, like how? Like how was this happening? And I said,
Right.
because you're doing it when he's already in the garbage. So
Yeah.
he's going, sure. Like, because dogs bite each other. So even though it's 127 continuous, dogs bite each other. And he's going, man, that sucks. But it's not the worst that I know that can happen. And it's worth it for this thing.
Yeah.
So
I really like to be in the garbage. So if I have to get a little bump there with that thing, that's fine. I'm in the garbage.
Exactly. So
Yeah, okay.
what I told him to do, the same thing. I said, even if he looks at it, I don't care if he's thinking about it or not. I was like, even if he looks at it, you blast him on 127 continuous.
Okay.
And then he stopped. Because now he couldn't even look at it.
Right.
You know, so if he can't look at it, he can't think about it. If he can't think about it, he's not going to do it.
Right.
And he ended up staying away from the garbage. He ended up not even wanting to go near it.
That's awesome.
Okay? But and in his case, that was very severe, right? But because they needed to. In most cases, it's just, you know, a few taps or whatever, and the dog's like, all right, whatever, I'm not interested. But every case is different. So, you know, but they went extreme consequence for the tiniest little behavior because they knew what was going to happen and they know what would happen if they did it as they were.
Right.
Okay? So if you see the thought process and it's like, whack, very firm, very, very firm, she's like, holy crap. Not
Well,
worth,
and
yeah.
that's what I've been doing with the backyard because we had talked about that last time, and I've been using the bonker to do that, and it's helping a lot. I actually did on Sunday. They were able to be out there, and no one went to the fence for the first time. That's great, right?
Mm-hmm.
The issue I have is they know when I'm coming. So when I start to go back there and they're all barking, they scatter.
Yeah, correct them still.
What?
Correct them still.
Yes, and I do. I chase them and I still bonk them. But they all go, oh shit, mom's coming.
Sure. Yeah, no. So yeah, keep doing that.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if you went back there and they stopped and you stopped, then they go like, oh, like we can bark and when mom comes out, we'll shut up. And when she leaves, we'll bark again. So
exactly.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. But with that, so then when I know the dogs are back there, and if I let them all out and they start to head back there, I should just go right up to them and bonk them before they even get to the fence.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Like so.
Yeah.
Like let's say you're out there with them and like the neighbor brings out their dog and you see them even look, but then the look becomes the walk over, becomes the lunge and bark.
Okay.
You would correct the look. Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha.
That'll
be an improvement, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so then, you know, for Ben, he would go into the pen. So we're just changing it. I wouldn't say go to your pen. I would simply bonk, move into him. He goes into the pen area. You close it or whatever. And then we shouldn't get the wooing that he's doing. Okay?
Yes.
And the last one would be Bessie.
My trouble.
Have you, in terms of the redirect, has she ever redirected towards a human?
Never, no.
Okay. So,
always dog.
With Bessie, has she been bonked?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How does she respond to it?
She kind of just looks at me.
Okay. So if it doesn't create what I call like the oh crap response, I would most likely do remote. And what you would do is, what's her standard obedience level?
About 40, 35, 40.
You're going to start at that number.
Okay.
When Bessie's at the gate, you're going to be about 4 to 6 feet away from her. Okay. And you're going to start tapping on the remote. Every 3 taps, if you don't see a response, bump it 5 levels.
Gotcha.
Okay. So 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and all of a sudden she starts to back away from the door. Okay. You want her to back away from the gate.
Okay.
Once she backs away and gives some good space, a few feet, you would go and then turn to face her, but not move into her. Okay. And then you're going to tap, and we're going to see what happens.
Oh, is she backs up again?
She should back up. The reason why I'm doing this a bit more cautiously with her is if you get in her face like you did with the little ones or Ben or something, because it's so confrontational, it puts you at risk. You see that? And you
Yeah.
can even use like and this I'm just like just in case.
Yeah.
Okay, because I had this happen to a client where I told him, and the dog had actually already bit the client several times,
Oh, okay.
and I told him your dog's gonna bite you. And he's like, no, no, I'll be fine. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, your dog's gonna bite you. Trust me.
Right.
You want to use something to block because I told him to get it's like a tennis racket or something. And he's like,
Oh,
no,
I
no, no,
see.
I'll be fine. I'm like, okay. He
Dog
got bit.
bit him.
He got bit. Dog jumped up and nailed him right in the thigh. It was a pretty good bite too. And it was just a small dog. It was a Westie. Jumped up,
Oh.
nailed him right in the thigh. Okay. And then he was like, shit. I was like, you know. So I'm taking the reason why you're 4 to 6 feet back and away from her.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Go for it.
That was a bonk.
Yeah, I heard that.
She went, oh crap. Get down. Oh, Johnny.
Where's she at now?
She's still on the sofa.
Let me take a look at her. Okay, did she lay down like that after the hit?
But to me, it's more that I can't decide if that's a play position from her or
I know
not.
it looks kind of awkward.
Yeah,
So go
I
ahead
feel like she's more at play.
yeah, go ahead and sit down and we'll see what happens.
Oliver is cowering in fear. Oh, she followed me.
Okay.
Now she's moving on with her life. She doesn't seem to care.
Okay, is she ignoring Oliver now?
Yeah, she's attacking Skimpy. So things are good now.
Which one's Oliver? Is she playing with him now?
No, that's Ren and Stimpy. Ren is now humping her.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm cool with the playing, with the wrestling. That's what I want them to be doing in there. They can wrestle, right? But the screen, I know, they're just. This is
funny.
what they do most of the day.
Okay, that's funny. So, the reason for the space is just so that if we were to see any frustration, you're in the clear.
Right.
Okay.
For sure.
And you make her back away considerably from the gate just for the tapping, and then you would come in and place yourself so there's a good distance there. Okay. And then technically, the forward body language is telling her to back away.
Right.
That ideally you shouldn't have to move in too much.
Okay.
But if everything's looking fine, just slowly but surely you're moving into her.
Mm-hmm.
And I would back her in a separate area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether it be the kitchen or the living room there.
Right.
Okay, and we're doing this so that we keep them all away from each other so that we don't get any redirects.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're used to that because that's how I feed them. I separate them.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like Evie, Oliver, and Abby. They all eat first. Bessie sits on this little cot while everyone.
Yeah.
Ben goes into his pen. Ren and Stimpy go into the mud room. So like I move them all around, and they're used to that. So I don't think it would be unreasonable that they would kind of expect it. Like they
Sure. There's some familiarity with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you do this, you want to be mindful that you're not walking them into an area. Like some people will call the dogs, and no, you have to back them into the area
Make them go in
because
there.
you're bullying them. So it's kind of like a bouncer at a club.
Right.
Like if they're gonna kick you out, they grab you, put you in front of them, and they just push you out.
Right.
Right? They're saying get out of here, and you're doing the same conversation. Okay, but you have to make sure you do it for every trigger, and then once everything's settled, then you open the door. Okay, and so for the dogs, if they're going, what's behind the door, and you're repeating this pattern, because you have to think that opening that door is a reinforcer.
Yes.
They're wanting you to open it to see what's going on behind that door. Is that once everybody's relaxed and settled, when you open that door, you're like reinforcing when you're in this calm mental state. Then I open the door. Okay? Like being barky and excited and all that stuff is not going to open this door faster.
Yeah.
Okay? Just like with kids.
Yes.
Me throwing a tantrum or whatever wasn't going to make my mom get me the toy any faster or whatever. If I behave myself, things would kind of just streamline because then I wasn't getting lectured or anything,
Right.
So, same thing for the dogs. So, but I would definitely do these guys in groups. Okay. So, like, let's say when you're doing the little ones, you just have Bessie and Benny already put away and ignore them just for those moments. So, like, Bessie could be in the room, kenneled or whatever. Benny could already be in his pen, and then you just have the little ones out.
Yep.
Okay. And then once you get that solid, then you could put the little ones in the back sunroom and close the door.
Okay.
Have Bessie put up, and then have Benny be loose.
Yep.
And then you get that done. And then once that's done, you have little ones in the sunroom already, Benny in the pen already, then it's just Bessie. Then once you got that done, you do Benny with the little ones. Okay? And then after that's done, then you do Benny with Bessie. And then Bessie with the little ones. And then everything together.
Okay.
Okay, so you have to piece it together.
Gotcha.
All right, because if you try to go from 1-1 to 1-1-1 to everything,
7.
good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. Okay.
You're right.
And
Godspeed.
there's never a rush for this stuff.
No.
The more you rush, the less confident you look. They're not going to take you serious. Okay. I take my time, and I've had, like I said, with one dog, I've had one dog take up to 15 minutes. And the owner's like, "Is the dog even going to learn?" I'm like, "Yeah." But you have, because it's the first time it's ever happened for them.
Right.
You know, because especially for Benny and Bessie, don't be surprised if you see them like try to come to your side because of heel, or sitting because of the auto sits. That's why you have to move into them. And like Benny, you could back and use your body. Bessie, you know, you could even use the leash to kind of put some tension to guide her where you need her to go. And then once she goes, you stop everything.
Yeah, normally with Bessie, when I use the e-collar, she comes towards me and seeks me out rather than like moves away or gets upset with me. I think she assumes that when that happens, she should come to me, but she also wants comfort from me, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So she'll sit by me.
In the videos that you're going to see, you know, there's the one, of course, where we go in person, and then there's the one where it's over a Zoom lesson to give you a visual of like what's this supposed to look like.
Yes.
Okay. And then towards the second half of it, it's really just me talking about what it's achieving, which is calmness. So once you see the exercise be done and I start talking, you can assume that that's all. Like it's probably like half an hour. It's an hour video, but like half an hour is what you'd most likely need to see because everything I've already kind of explained to you here.
Sure.
Okay. So now, like, let's say you did this and all the dogs are calm. When do you think, like, let's say you had, like, let's say Will came in, right? And you backed all the dogs into the respective areas. When do you think they could greet Will?
I think once Will's settled and he's kind of, you know, say he's bringing in food, we get the food into the kitchen, we kind of figure out what we're going to do, and then when we feel like it's ready, we can tell him to come.
Okay. So, for whatever reason, if you were to release the dogs in that setting, they would spike.
Would they really?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's like, okay, you're free, and they're like, yay!
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I do instead, like for Ben, it's really easy, because I would just go and open the pen very quietly. I don't ever say anything.
Right. She knew I was coming, and she went.
Was it Bessie?
That was Abby.
Oh, okay. I was looking at Bessie in the back there. So
Bessie wanted to go look outside and see what was going on. A dog barked outside. How
gotcha. So for Ben, he would be the easiest because you would just walk over to the pen and open the gate, but don't say anything.
Right.
So there's nothing to trigger him, and you might see him staying there for like 30 minutes, and then he'll like look around and then come out. We don't say anything.
Okay.
So the signal for him is when I open your gate, you're okay. Okay.
Gotcha.
For the little ones and for like Bessie, because they're going to be in their respective rooms, what I do is I just go up to the dogs and very calmly and very quietly, I don't say anything. I'll just give them a light pat on the side to let them know like you're good. Okay. And then I leave the room. And then you might find they'll still stay in there for, again, 30 minutes. And then they kind of look around and they'll start to like just kind of come out. And eventually they'll learn like, oh, when we get the pat, it's all good.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, another way that you can bring down the barrier is like, let's say Bessie's in the dining room, you've already released the other dogs, is when you and the guest, or in this case if it's Will that you've backed the dogs from the way from the door from.
Yeah.
When that person enters into the space that the dogs are in, that also removes the barrier. Because now they're entering the dog space.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, like let's say you had a guest over, and you back the pups into the sunroom, Bessie's in the living room, Ben is in his pen, and you invite them in, and you decide you're going to go into the sunroom. And the guest comes into the sunroom, all the little ones could say hi. But they should be much calmer because you've settled them down. But technically, Bessie and Ben wouldn't be able to greet them because one, Ben is in the pen, but two, Bessie's in a separate area.
Gotcha.
So that guest did not enter in the living room; they entered into that sunroom.
Right.
So then when they come out, technically the little ones can come and follow.
Okay.
And then if the guest entered into the living room with Bessie, then Bessie could technically say hi and greet. But again, her energy should be low because you've calmed her down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why. So like let's say you backed all the dogs away, and you and your guest went into the dining room and never set foot into another room, the dogs would never come out.
Interesting.
Because you've not addressed them, you've not said it was okay. Two, your guest has not gone into those spaces.
Okay.
So like let's say your guest had to go into the living room, maybe to go to the bathroom or something.
Yeah.
And they came back, technically Bessie would be free to come out. But
Okay.
maybe you decide, I don't want you to come out. You would simply tap and confront Bessie to tell her this threshold is still up.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and
That's fascinating.
use your like, so for your sunroom, because you have that doorway, you have that threshold, that's your line. For
Okay.
the living room, you have another line from where the wall ends and it opens up into the living room. So just imagine that wall continues, but it's invisible.
Okay.
That's the threshold.
Okay.
Okay. And you might see the dogs try to be sneaky.
I was trying to see what she was doing.
I see her, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to be sneaky.
Yeah.
Trying to cross threshold or whatever, or like sitting right. I've even had dogs like that'll sleep right, like with their nose.
Oh, yes.
You would correct that.
Oh, okay.
Because they're playing a game. The closer they are to that threshold, it's intentional. Okay? It's like, oh, no, we're not going to play that game. You need to give me more space.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
Questions?
No. Honestly, I think this will be a really good exercise and thing for us to do because it'll wear them out. It gives them work to do, So yeah. I think that'll be neat. I did want to mention I've been working on the crate with Bessie. She still barks a lot when I get home, but they now know with the pop of the door that I don't want them to come out until I open it calmly, and they will wait for me to do that.
Okay. So
that's good. She still barks like a lunatic, but she won't just rush out of the crate now.
Gotcha.
So that's improvement.
Did you try the e-collar with that yet?
No, we haven't done the e-collar because I still leave Ren and Stimpy in the crate with her, or else she barks without it.
Yeah.
Will and I talked about it a couple of days ago, and what we need to do is put the e-collar on her, and then I leave the remote with him. So that way when she's barking, he can just remote her from wherever he is in the house.
But only correct when the two littles aren't in there with her.
That's what yeah. So the issue is our plan was to rework the family room so that we get an extra crate in there for Ren and Stimpy, because if we leave them out, they pee everywhere.
Gotcha.
So if you could help with marking, can you help with marking?
Possibly. Shoot me an email.
That's hard.
Shoot me an email.
Okay. Maybe in our next session we can talk about
with the marking stuff, and then we'll talk about the other stuff because I saw some things today that need to be addressed, but that wasn't the topic.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I have notes here. So I'm going to send you an email with the 2 videos.
Okay.
And then you can just send me a reminder email. Just tell me when you see the marking.
Okay.
Where you see the marking, how often it happens, when it happens, so I can take a look at it and then kind of figure out what's going on there.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. I will.
No problem.
Okay.
So it's a pleasure,
so much,
Allison.
Jesse.
What's that?
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.